Congratulations to Toronto! With the Raptors recently winning the 2019 NBA Championship, it was a remarkable season. A season highlighted by a blockbuster trade. In the 2018 offseason, the Raptors went all in and traded away their franchise star DeMar DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard, who had just 1 year left on his contract. And nobody was sure where he was gonna go or if he was even healthy. It was a huge risk, but despite taking this risk, it worked out in the end. After getting Kawhi, the Raptors immediately won the championship the same season he arrived. How many other times has this happened? Well, let's go back in history and take a look. In this video, we're going to talk about 7 other NBA trades that instantly led to a championship. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and let's get started. Honorable mention to the Pau Gasol trade. The Lakers traded for Pau at the 2008 trade deadline, but they did not win immediately, as they lost in the 2008 finals against the Celtics. It almost fits the criteria of this video, but it wasn't instantly. So I'll leave this out and let's start at number 7, Dennis Rodman to the Chicago Bulls, 1995. Obviously, we give the majority of the Bulls' championship credit to Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, but Rodman was one of the most impactful players of all time. He filled in a role that was similar to Draymond Green on the Warriors. The energy, the defense, and the rebounding he provided could not be replicated by any other player. So in the summer of 1995, the Bulls went through a couple of changes. Jordan recently returned from retirement, but the Bulls lost to Orlando in the second round of the playoffs. Over the summer, they decided to revamp their team. The acquisition of Rodman was their first step in returning back to the finals. And he did not disappoint. The Bulls would finish with 72 wins, at the time the best record in NBA history. In the playoffs, Rodman stepped up his game even further, having 2 different games where he recorded 11 offensive rebounds. Both performances tied the NBA record for most offensive boards in a game. All while Jordan was having arguably the worst finals of his career, Rodman was averaging nearly 15 rebounds a game, including 7 offensive ones a game. That's what ultimately decided the series too. The Bulls shot terribly, but the insane number of offensive rebounds turned the tide. Those extra possessions won them the championship, and Rodman was at the forefront of it. Number 6, Kevin McHale and Robert Parish to the Celtics, 1980. Before the 1980 draft, the Celtics had high hopes for building on their team. At the time, Larry Bird just finished an incredible rookie season, putting up historic numbers and leading the Celtics back into the playoffs. But that was not enough. They needed to surround him with better players. So here comes the 1980 NBA draft, where they solved that problem. In one of the most lopsided trades of all time, the Celtics traded the number 1 pick of the draft to the Warriors, in exchange for Robert Parish and the number 3 pick. Then the Celtics used that number 3 pick to draft Kevin McHale, while the Warriors used that number 1 pick to take Joe Barry Carroll, who had an underwhelming career. I've talked about this trade before, and it was one of the most incredible things the Celtics ever pulled off. McHale and Parish would be the extra guns that Bird needed, and the team immediately won the championship in 1981. When people look back at the 1980s Boston Celtics, many fans believe that drafting Bird started the Celtics dynasty. But it was really this trade for McHale and Parish that started it. They would help the team reach the finals 5 times and win 3 championships in that decade. It also showed how competent the Celtics front office was even back then. They were so successful for so many different eras, so many different decades, because they always had great management and a great coaching staff. And without this trade, there would be no dynasty. Number 5, Mark Aguirre to Detroit, 1989. A lesser-known trade, but this was a major factor why the Pistons won back-to-back championships. It was a trade deadline deal where the Pistons would trade away Adrian Dantley, their leading scorer, to Dallas, in exchange for Mark Aguirre, a former number 1 overall pick. It was a high-risk trade, essentially blowing up their team in the middle of the season, but it worked out. Dantley was not a great fit with the team's playstyle or culture. The Pistons were known for their rugged defense and high-paced offense, neither of which supported Dantley's game. Despite being one of the most efficient scorers of all time, Dantley just slowed down the offense. and he did not get along with coach Chuck Daly or Isaiah Thomas. On the other hand, Mark Aguirre was the opposite. He was not a better individual player than Dantley, but he was easier to get along with and his run-and-gun playstyle fit the team much better. As a result, the Pistons went on a furious run in the 1989 playoffs. 4 months after the trade, they would sweep the Lakers in the 1989 finals, capturing their first ever championship. And then, in the following year, they would win back-to-back. This Mark Aguirre trade gets glossed over in NBA history, but he was the final piece that they needed to win. Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, they both mentioned before that getting Aguirre turned everything around. His positivity in the locker room and chemistry on the court was what they were missing when they had Dantley. Number 4, Clyde Drexler to Houston, 1995. While the Rockets did win the championship in the previous year, 1994, the team looked quite different the year after. Just like every other championship team, they were trying to repeat. But they got off to a very slow start, a combination of injuries and blowing leads in the fourth quarter. They were hovering around the middle of the standings, and it looked like that motivation for another championship slowly waned. So at the 1995 trade deadline, the Rockets decided to take a chance. They traded away Otis Thorpe, their starting power forward, to the Portland Trail Blazers for Clyde Drexler, a perennial all-star and Hakeem Olajuwon's former college teammate. This was the trade that revitalized the team and gave them that fire to get back to the finals and win. Unfortunately, it was kinda rough at first. Drexler's arrival caused their former starting shooting guard Vernon Maxwell to move to the bench, and eventually Maxwell's minutes would slowly decrease. Despite being a huge part of their team in the past year, Maxwell felt very upset that Drexler came and took his spot. As a result, he would miss practices, he got suspended by the team, and later on, he left the team permanently. Anyway, it took a while for the Rockets to get accustomed to playing with Drexler. Anytime you add a superstar to your team mid-season, it's gonna take a while. But by the time the playoffs rolled around, they hit their stride. As the 6th seed in the West, the Rockets made a historic run. Number 3, Rasheed Wallace to Detroit, 2004. Most of us know about how good the Pistons were during that time frame. 2004 was when they won the championship despite being heavy underdogs in the finals. However, their success was a result of a mid-season trade. At the 2004 trade deadline, the Pistons acquired Rasheed Wallace, a well-known player who had his fair share of controversies. Nobody thought he would be the guy to lift them over the top, but that's exactly what he did. For the last few years, the Pistons were looking for a power forward to fill in the gaps on their team, and Wallace fit perfectly. A versatile player who can shoot, post up, face up, defend. The Pistons were already very good to begin with, but Rasheed was the missing piece on that very good team, and thus he turned them into a legit championship team. Similar to Mark Aguirre's arrival in Detroit 15 years prior, Sheed's arrival was similar. A risky mid-season trade that could have blew up in their face, but it turned out exceptionally well. They were so close to winning back-to-back championships too, pushing the Spurs to Game 7 in 2005, but ultimately fell short. Number 2, Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen to Boston, 2007. Previously, the Boston Celtics won just 24 games before this trade. In the summer of 2007, the Celtics would pull off 2 ridiculous trades. The first of which was for Ray Allen. The Celtics sent Jeff Green, Delonte West, and Wally Sczerbiak to Seattle for Allen. Then, shortly after, they would trade for Kevin Garnett in a massive deal involving 14 different players. Now, the Celtics formed their new Big Three, and not only did they immediately win the championship, but they changed the free agent landscape drastically. We saw other teams start trying to do what they did. Stars teaming up in free agency became a normal occurrence. What made this so different than other super teams was that Garnett, Allen, and Pierce were on losing teams in their previous seasons. They were struggling to carry their own franchises and all missed the playoffs the year before they teamed up. Essentially, they all came from similar circumstances and realized the only way to win was to work together. And number 1, Moses Malone to Philadelphia, 1982. The Sixers in 1982 were not bad. In fact, they just made it to the NBA Finals in 1982, but unfortunately, they would fall to the Lakers. In the 1982 offseason, this was the first time we saw an MVP in their prime join a team that was already a championship contender. Moses Malone was struggling on the Houston Rockets despite winning 2 MVPs. He averaged over 31 points and 14 rebounds a game in the season before he came to Philly. That's how good he was. Although this wasn't a normal trade, it was still a sign-and trade. The Rockets would match Philly's offer in free agency and then agree to trade him there for Darryl Dawkins and Caldwell Jones. Moses had an incredible first season in Philly, as he won the MVP, the 3rd one of his career. And along with the rest of the team, which included Dr. J, the Sixers went on a rampage. They won 65 games. In an interview, when Moses was asked what they expected in the playoffs, he responded with faux, expecting to sweep every single series. They were so close to doing that too, but they went to 5 games in the conference finals, but swept the other series, including the Lakers in the finals. And that's all, folks. Those were 7 other trades for star players which immediately led to a championship. Congratulations to Toronto again. I wanted to make this video to show how rare this occurrence actually is. Making a blockbuster trade and then instantly winning the title is so rare. Anyway, let me know in the comments your thoughts on the video. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.